Welcome to In the Green Chair, an interview series by Relay Education. In each episode, we sit down with a professional who's working the green economy to learn about their story.
Relay is a Canadian charity that delivers renewable energy and environmental education programs with the goal of creating change for a greener future.
Throughout the series, you'll hear from professionals across a wide range of fields and sectors who all work in what we consider to be a green-collar career. Hey listeners, in today's episode we're discussing gender equity in the workplace and specifically talking about women's experiences. But before we get started, we want to acknowledge that there are many different gender identities and all deserve equity in the workplace. EGAL and Pride at Work Canada are two national organizations advocating for trans, non-binary, and two-spirit workers. I'm your host, Adeye, and today I have a special co-host, Kirstin Pulles. Hi, Kirstin.
Hi, Adeye.
Kirstin is the community organizer at Efficiency Canada. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong activist working on environmental and social justice issues, and right now I'm using those skills with Efficiency Canada. I'm the host of our Becoming series, where we hold career nights every month with leaders in the energy efficiency sector. Efficiency Canada is the national voice for an energy efficient economy, and part of what we do is help people find really cool green jobs.
Today is International Women's Day. It is a day where we celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. It originated in the early 1900s when women in the United States and Europe began to organize and march for better working conditions, better pay, and the right to vote. That work continues today. In this episode, we will be chatting about gender equity in the energy and efficiency sectors.
I'm so excited to be here as a co-host and to speak with our guest, Megan. Megan is the Director of Communications for StepUp, a nonprofit that advocates for gender equality in energy management. She's also the host of the Plugged In podcast, where she speaks with women about climate action and sustainability in Canada.
Hi, Megan. Welcome to the Green Chair.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And one thing I noticed that we all have in common is that we're all hosts of different interview series. So I want to know, what do you love about interviewing people, and what is the importance of podcasts and webinars related to energy right now?
Great question, Adeye. I love connecting with women and with the guests that I have on my podcast. And I think right now, for me personally, there's something so intimate, and I do miss the in-person interviews. Of course, I love putting on my headset and having my guest have their headset on and sitting in the same room, and just like, it really is an intimacy that's really unique, I think. So that's one thing. I think in this time with COVID and not being able to connect in person, and not having the same networking events and conferences to go to, I've heard from some of my listeners that it's a great way to just stay in touch and up to date on what's happening in the sector. So I think this platform is super helpful.
I totally agree on the connection side. I think hearing people's stories is so important. And I also know for myself, I just graduated last year and I didn't really feel equipped to find jobs in the green economy. And I feel like all of our series can help people navigate that. And I love interviewing people who have already made it because they all have such unique stories. And I feel like listening to those stories might give someone the clue that they need to find their own career. And I think it's cool giving people that opportunity. So I want to talk a bit about energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is a really interesting sector because it can mean anything from electric vehicles to efficient buildings. It employs HVAC technicians, program managers, architects, data analysts, and so much more.
My introduction to the world of energy efficiency was just through watching YouTube videos of people building their own tiny homes and installing solar panels to, live off grid. And now I realize it's just simply about how we can improve the ways that we use energy.
Energy management is part of this world. So can you tell us what energy management is and what kind of careers are part of this space?
Sure. And thinking about energy, it's like, how do we generate energy? How do we move energy? And then how do we use energy? So energy management is really about how do we use energy in our homes, in our businesses. And energy efficiency is about how we manage that efficiently. right? So that we're not wasting energy, so that we're using it in the most effective way so we can eventually reduce the amount that we're consuming and for all of the benefits that has related to greenhouse gas emissions. So, in terms of jobs, I mean, it's a wide spectrum. You can go through certification programs to be a certified energy manager. Of course, engineering is a big component of energy management work. There are energy auditors. And then there are kind of the space that I work in. I've been at Summerhill, which is an implementer of energy efficiency programs, and I've worked there for 14 years almost. And we do program delivery. So that's project management, that's communications, it's marketing, it's talking to consumers about how to use energy efficiently, contact center, talking to people one-on-one about some of their questions and around technologies. If you're interested in policy and program design and evaluation, that's also very much connected to the energy management sector.
Definitely. I think that's part of why I love this sector, because you can get into the technical side, but there's also roles for people to be a bit of a detective, to go on more of a customer relationship side. There's kind of room for everybody. So it's pretty interesting.
I would like to know a little bit more about your career path. So I know that you studied international development and international affairs in university. How did you decide to focus on the energy sector?
So I studied international development at the University of Guelph, and I specialized in geography and environmental studies there, and always had a passion for climate and solutions around sustainability. I thought I was going to work in international development. I worked at the Canadian International Development Agency in Ottawa while I was doing my master's, and I was focused on climate policy and delivering a climate change development program in developing countries. Then I wanted to get to the ground, and program management and project delivery was always very interesting to me. So I got to work and live in Central America in Belize for a year. And I was volunteering for an Indigenous organization that was co-managing a national park at the time. And when I arrived in the small town of Punta Gorda in southern Belize, the government there had just given, like that week, rights to a US small oil company to start looking for oil, doing surveillance to see if there would be enough oil to drill in this sensitive conservation area, a national park that was managed by an Indigenous organization. So I was kind of thrown into volunteering in an advocacy campaign around protecting this national park. And I really saw firsthand the challenge with oil extraction and oil development in Central America. I did organized a tour of Indigenous leaders from Belize to Guatemala, to areas where have been really terribly degraded by oil development. So kind of this reflection I had while I was working there was why are we now needing to drill for oil and look for oil in some of the most remote rainforests in Central America? It started me thinking about, and I started to realize, okay, this is really being driven by demand that can be managed through on the demand side. So conserving at the source. So kind of after volunteering there for a year, I came back to Canada and started to look for jobs that were more focused in how can I make a difference in my own backyard on the demand side of energy. So that's kind of how I found my way to Summerhill, and from there, engaging in conservation programs. That's kind of how I found my way.
I think you make a really good point, and I'm glad you shared that story. It's one thing to learn about it in theory when you're in school, and it's another thing to actually travel to a region that is at risk of resource extraction without permission. And I think it gives you a lot of perspective and lessons to take back and bring into what you do now.
I've got a bit of a big question here for you.
Oh, good.
In what ways is energy gendered? And can you define gender equity for us?
So, gender equity is about, from my perspective, bringing balance back to the systems and organizations and leadership. We have, for centuries, seen a real imbalance. So, governments, organizations, businesses, finance, decision makers that have been primarily white, primarily male. And the move to gender equity is around recognizing we need to get back in balance. And to your point around energy being gendered, for me, it's also about the feminine and the masculine. So it's not necessarily men and women, and it's actually the balance within ourselves and within our organizations. What I saw working in energy efficiency is what was really interesting, and why I started my podcast is I was surrounded by women. I was working in this industry, this energy efficiency industry, and my CEO was a woman. All of the women, most of the executive team at Summerhill were women and continue to be women. A lot of our clients were women. A lot of the partners we worked with were women. And I was like, there's so many amazing women in the sector. I want to share these stories. That's kind of where my passion for the podcast came from. But then what's interesting, of course, is that when you look at the industry as a larger industry, 75% of the energy industry is mostly male, working on the lines, trades, engineering, all of those sectors tend to be still really dominated by men. I found working in energy conservation, that's where I was finding more engagement with women.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know if you could really break it down, how would StepUp approach a big organization or big business? Are you kind of like a headhunter? You're helping them find diverse applicants?
We're a nonprofit, volunteer-led organization that started in 2019, and we've been focused on doing events primarily, so connecting women in their mid careers to networking events. We're working towards toolkits and things that, like, real resources that will help them. One of the things we're working on right now, it's going to be launched very shortly, is a survey to the energy sector looking at parental leave benefits. This isn't recognized as an important barrier and challenge with women stepping up in their careers and retaining. So it's about recruiting and retention. Another topic that we're talking about, we haven't worked on yet, but I think is coming, is around posting salary ranges on job descriptions, right? So this is something that research is starting to show really has an impact on equity. And for new grads who are coming in and aren't sure what a salary band looks like, these are some of the tools and things that we're starting to work on.
That's amazing. It seems like you're coming at it from all different angles. This is a really hard question, but like, how do you begin to change the culture, especially like if a woman has worked her whole career to get into the boys club and then she finally does, when she's at the top, the sexism still continues, even though she has she now has power to maybe do something about it.
I'm keeping this book right by the side of my desk because I'm finding it so helpful. It's called All We Can Save, and it's edited by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Dr. Catherine Wilkinson, and totally recommend it to your listeners. It's an anthology of essays written by women who are working on climate issues. Naomi Klein and some other fabulous Canadians are included. She really introduces in the introduction the concept of feminine leadership. And to your point earlier around, women needing to take on these very male and masculine roles to survive in the workplace. She says, look around and you will see on the rise climate leadership that is more characteristically feminine and more faithfully feminist, rooted in compassion, connection, creativity, and collaboration. And that really resonated with me. I think it's those aspects that really, from a gender equity perspective, are going to help us solve these huge challenges that are ahead of us. Something needs to change. What we're doing right now isn't working. Bringing on new leadership, new styles of leadership, new perspectives. I'll point you back again to this great work that Foreign Policy Analytics did. It's available on their website. All you need to do is Google women as levers of change. And what they found is that when there is an increased gender equity at the board level and at the management level, there is a higher success rate of certain things like environmental and sustainability goals and results from those goals in companies. And even things like profit, right? Like profitability of companies, when you look at a gender diverse board, there's starting to be evidence that's starting to prove what I think some of us intuitively know is that balance is important.
Thank you for reading that excerpt and explaining it really well.
Yeah, I really appreciate your points about valuing the feminine. I was wondering if you have stories you've seen of women in the energy world who have had a big impact, anything that you'd want to share along those lines?
One thought that comes to mind in terms of things that are inspiring me is, the IESO recently just hired their first female CEO and president, and the IESO, is the Independent Electricity Systems Operator in Ontario. So they're the organization that manages the electricity for the province of Ontario. And they've just appointed their first female CEO and president. Her name is Leslie Gallinger. She'll start in May, and that's really exciting for the industry.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Did you have a mentor in your career, at the start of your career, or in school?
My aunt was actually a mentor for me, and she is an anthropology professor and experienced and worked in international development. So she mentored me through, I think, university. And then I've been really lucky at Summerhill. Arcilia Serafini, our CEO and president, has been a sponsor and a mentor for me for sure. Thank you, Corey Diamond. He comes to mind as well. The support of mentors is so important. Being able to call someone, being able to get some feedback, and even if it's just some texting here and there. And that's one thing actually that StepUp is looking into, is providing a mentorship program and connecting people with mentors.
What are some women-led energy companies and organizations that the listeners and ourselves can support and follow?
For sure, check out StepUp. We have a LinkedIn group. You can search us by searching StepUp Breakthrough Energy in LinkedIn. Check our website out. I've been really impressed by the work of two Indigenous organizations working on energy issues. The Indigenous Clean Energy Network, they also go by the acronym ICE. They do some more work on generation renewables. So I've been talking mostly about energy management today, but they have an energy efficiency channel that you can sign up on their newsletter. Really active, really great resources. And then Indigenous Climate Action, led by their executive director, Ariel DeRanger, is quite impressive.
What are some job interview tips you have for young women entering the energy sector, and how can they advocate for themselves once they're in the workplace?
Getting to know your potential employer that's interviewing you. So I'd say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask hard questions about things that matter to you, about the organization and the leadership.
And those things can be so hard and so scary. Advocating for yourself and knowing what you want.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Megan, for teaching us about gender equity and energy management. It was really great to get to chat with you both today, especially on International Women's Day. Where can we find you online? And are there ways for people to get involved in StepUp's work?
Best way to get in touch with StepUp would be to follow us on LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can follow my podcast, Plugged In Podcast, on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to Relay Education for having us on today as a guest.
Thank you, Kirstin, for co-hosting In the Green Chair with me today. I look forward to watching your webinar on March 23rd.
We hope you enjoyed learning about the different paths people take to working in the green economy.
Follow us on social media at Relay Education and check out our website, relayeducation.com, to learn more.